I was put on body detail. They called me a gopher. All the nasty jobs that nobody else wanted to do.
The second man, the radio man, why, he got wounded or killed. I don't know what happened to him, but they put me in to help the radio man carry the old 300 radio. And I lost it one day. I got it blowed off my back and never got a scratch out of it. I had the harness left on my back, and that was it.
We were assigned our duties. Well, of course, they had my record as having flamethrower experience. And old Sergeant Wilson, I'll never forget him. The first thing he said, "I need a flamethrower, Weinmeier." And I was a flamethrower from then on.
The flamethrower on Iwo Jima had about 2 minutes to live, really. And the radio was right behind that. They see you carry the radio, they wanted you. And so Joe and I, we lasted 36 days, and how we done it, I don't know. But I bless the Lord for that.
We transmitted voice, but also there was another radio called a TBX. And with that one guy would send code, and another guy would crank the generator.
They had napalm, and then we had gasoline and diesel mix. The tanks mostly used napalm because they could shoot further than our flamethrowers that we carried, you know. I never fired napalm. I always fired gas and diesel fuel mix. Napalm, you shoot and it sticks and burns. It's like a gel.
The beach itself was terrible. Jeeps, 4x4s, even tanks were all around in array. And
you can imagine the mess on that beach.
The beaches were so full of damaged and dead Marines and everywhere, and damaged vehicles, you know, you couldn't get anywhere in that volcanic sand too.
Boats upside down. They tried to bring jeeps in, they got stuck in the sand. Bodies everywhere, still under bombardment. And the best thing we could do is do what we could do to help try to stay alive, because it was a disaster. It was an amazing island in that as you approached it before D-Day, you looked at it and you could swear there was not maybe 2 or 3 people on it. And they had been working on this island for some 30 or 40 years, and it was a village in and of itself underground. We never saw them. They were in the island, they were not on it.
They found us. We didn't really find them.
I think they had something like 20,000, 22,000 troops on the island, and there was no evidence of it as you approach it. They had dug 16 miles of tunnels and caves, which we learned later on. And we hardly had a front line.
They had little trap doors, and they'd open them up and they'd fire at us. Well, the only way we'd get them out is burn them out, you know, and seal them off.
They'd come out of those caves and spider holes and try to steal things, our water, ammunition, food, and that went on for the whole 36 days.
They were to fight to the end, and each one of them were expected to kill at least a dozen of our GIs before they got him, if at all possible. Not to show themselves anytime in any way. Don't give visibility, you don't get shot. So, but they, you know, they were tucked away and camouflaged and everything else, and they'd pick away at us. And you often couldn't tell where the heck it was coming from.
and that's where I came in. I'd have to go up. I had backup fire behind me that would fire into the opening to keep them from firing back. And then I would sneak up, get up, and get as close as I could and stick the nozzle of that gun in the opening and fire. Well, of course, with that, all of a sudden it was just the poof, and it burned up all the oxygen, and they all suffocated. And then the demolition guys would come and go up over the cave, seal them off. Because as we moved up, they could come out and come in behind us.
My foxhole buddy and me, we'd put a poncho over the hole, and that way you felt secure. You know, when the shells were going off, you felt like you had something protecting you, but of course it wasn't. It was a psychological thing.
I was in there and I had my hand sticking out like a fool, and that's how I got hit.
We were in a pretty tough time, and I got shrapnel in my back, and I was bleeding from my ears. And the corpsman cleaned out my ears and put some stuff on my back and told me to go to the beach for evacuation. And I said, no, I'm not going.
The doctor fixed me up and bandaged my hand and sent me back to the front lines. So I was on Evo from the time we landed until it was over with.
Everything is kind of the luck of the draw. I've seen guys that got killed carrying ammunition, as well as, you know, friends of mine that were in attack situations.
I got to the top of that little terrace, and I turned around to see what was ahead and see if there's a hole I could get into if I had to get into it in a hurry. And just then the mortar went off about 6 feet in front of me. And the blast was horrendous. It knocked me out flat and rang my bell for a little while. And I started to get up and fell down. And Captain Austin, he said, well, you've been hit, Whip. And I hadn't realized it even. I looked down my leg and could see the blood. And he says, I'm going to help you over in this shell hole, and then I'll get some corpsmen and get you out of here. And I said, I don't want to leave, Captain. I can hobble around this one leg pretty good yet. And he said, no, you'll just be holding the other guys up and putting them at risk because they'll be wanting to take care of you.
Yeah, a lot of good guys. To put it in perspective, too, you know, we lost more men in those 5 weeks on that 7.5 square miles than they have in this 10 years in Iraq and Afghanistan.
On one side of me, there must have been about 30, maybe 40 cots laying there with the ponchos up over their face. Those guys were waiting for the graveyard. On the other side of me were about 25 more cots, a lot of these blood things hanging, the IV things hanging there. And the medical personnel were doing triage. They'd go one to one and decide which one they could help and let the other guys go. And that was tough to listen to.
Chaplain would say a few words, and then they had to play taps on the bugle, and had a flag covering over them, and they'd slide these guys into the ocean. And I thought, what a lonely place that is to be buried out there in the ocean. I thought of the reference in the Bible where it says, the sea shall give up its dead. And I thought, well, these guys, God's going to know where they're at, but who else? Nobody else knows where they're at. And there they are down there, 1,000 miles away from home, and being buried out there without a friend, a family, or anybody.
They only had 2 hospital ships with the big red crosses on them. They were jammed full, and they'd already gone to Pearl Harbor. They had left. So they had to take troop ships. And in order to bring these 19,000 casualties we had and put them on board to get them back to the hospital at Saipan.
So we pulled up in front of this first ship, or to the side of this first ship, and the guys on the ship said, we can't take you, move on, we're loaded. So we wound our way around through these ships out there, and they were stationed pretty close together. got to the next old troop ship and that had been converted to take on casualties, and can't take you. You got to move on to the next one. And we did that 4 times. And the 4th time, the guy pulls up and they said, "We can't take you." And the guy said, "I'm not moving." That was the fellow in control of this ship, this little boat we were on. And the captain came on and said, "This is the captain speaking. You'll have to move on. We can't take you. We're full." And he said, "I'm not moving." I thought, good for you. He's a Lieutenant J.G. or something. I thought, good for you to ask that captain in our behalf. And because this guy over to my right needs help. He said, "We got guys here that desperately need help, and I'm not moving."
A guy was wounded out in front of us, and he was in a different company. And Sergeant Bonner said, "I need 4 volunteers to go down there and get him and bring him back." So we went down, 4 of us. And we had a stretcher and everything, and we got him on the stretcher and all right, and they opened fire on us. And the first bullet fired went right by my head, just like that. I could feel it go right by me. I told the guys, I said, "Let's get out of here." The guy got us in his sights. And at that time, he shot the guy next to me. He got him in the neck, and he was dead. And then he got the other guy on the other side of the stretcher, and he killed him. And then the 4th guy, the other guy was right opposite me. He ran. I just sat there for a while, and I thought, here I am with 2 guys that are dead. The other guy's left, and this guy, poor wounded guy's here. I got to do something. So I made my way back to Sergeant Bonner in the front lines, and we got another stretcher crew, and I went out there and got all the guys out of there. So I was awarded a Bronze Star for that.
I have a Bronze Star, and I have with a V, and I have a Purple Heart.
My outfit was pulled back off the lines, and I heard on the radio that the 9th Marines, the 3rd Division, was back off the lines right next to us. So I got permission to go look for my brother. I knew he was in the 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines, and they gave me an okay to go look for him about 45 minutes or so, and to be back at a certain time. So I found his buddy, and his buddy says, "He's around here somewhere, he's all right. I don't know what he's doing," but I found out later he was out looking for me. And but in the meantime, we got underneath the shelter halves in the foxholes, and we opened that can of peaches. His buddy said to my brother was saving them for a special day, and he said, "You're the kid brother." He said, "He's probably saving them for you." So we opened that can of peaches, and we sat there eating them under the shelter half. My brother come back. He had his .45 out in his hand, and he looked underneath the shelter halves and said, "Who in the hell's eating my peaches?" And I looked at him, I said, "Who in the hell cares?" And it was all over with then. He wasn't mad anymore. He saw who it was. So we got to visit for about 20 minutes, and then I had to get back to my unit. So I never saw him anymore on the Iwo Jima, but he got home safe and like I did.
I've heard people say many times, some of these young guys from Afghanistan and Iraq, they get over in a hospital in Germany and they keep saying, "Am I going to be able to go back? I want to go back." People say, "I can't imagine why these guys don't want to go back." And I can appreciate why they want to go back, because, you know, when you're in the thick of things, you're not thinking about the patriotic part of being a Marine, you're thinking about other Marines. And you fight for each other when you're in those situations.
I'd already made a request twice since I was fairly ambulatory to go back to Maui to my group. But I could never get a positive answer. So I thought, well, I'll hit this new doctor up. So he looked at me and I said, I'd like to go back to my group at Maui, because we were getting ready to go to Japan, or my group was. And he looked at my leg, and he looked at my chart, and he wasn't very sympathetic. He said, I'm sorry, you're going to the States.
And we thought, oh man, we don't want to go to Guam and lose our outfit and not be a part of what's going on. We were praying, Lord, help us get back to that island, because you just really didn't want to lose your outfit. That afternoon, we saw this boat right up at the bow, and one more landing craft, LCI. It's the same thing we landed in the first time. Was up there, and there's a sailor back there. The coxswain was there cleaning up a bit and working on fiddling around with the boat. I went up to him and I said, are you going ashore? And he said, tomorrow morning. I said, could we ride with you? And he said, yeah, you could, but you better get different clothes than that on. We just had on Navy pajamas. And so we saw this big old pile of clothes and gear. They call it the dead man's pile because it was the stuff taken off of the guys that had been killed and seriously wounded. And so we got up there into the comm center, and all the guys saw us, and man, it was like old home week. They were hugging each other. We were asking, how's everybody else, and who are we missing anybody? And, kind of catching up. It was just, they say there's no closer bond among men than those who've been in combat together. And that's certainly true, I tell you.
Well, they raised the flag on the fourth day, but the volcano was not secured in 4 days.
The battle just really started at that time, and it was a tremendous encouragement, though.
Well, most memorable was when I saw the flag go up on Mount Suribachi.
Yeah, just like the flag going up on Iwo Jima. When I saw that, it gave me a thrill, too.
I heard on radio they was carrying a flag up there, to put up, so I kept watching it when I could, and I saw it go up.
Well, I just looked up and watched them hike it up.
And I just happened to be sitting on our bunker, which was on the beach where the command post was, with my field glasses when I saw this group of about 8 Marines struggling up the side of that Mount Suribachi. And I watched them go up. They'd go up a little ways, and they'd stop and shoot for a while, and then they'd get up and clamber up another 100 feet or so, and then stop and shoot some more. So, and they were getting a bunch of return fire as well. Anyway, they finally made it to the top, and a short time after they made it to the top, why, this